Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Math with Dr. War. This is part 2 of the zeros of a polynomial. Today I'm going to be showing you how to find the solution for the zeros of a polynomial with a calculator and without a calculator. Now to remember, the first video I did, I used the calculator and the quadratic formula. I'm not going to use the quadratic formula today. I'm going to show you how to use the method of plug and chug. Let's begin. So my first question states roots of the equation x squared minus 3x plus 2 equals 0 are, and they list 4 possible answers. Remember, when they say the word roots, they mean zeros. And also, when your polynomial has an x squared, that's kind of your clue also, and I'm going to talk about that later down when we look at some word problems. Yes, I have some word problems for you. When you see x squared minus 3x plus 2, you know it must equals to 0, even if you're lost in the problem. So I want to find out the roots. I'm not going to use the calculator with this question because the values are kind of small. So I'm on the test. It's on the non-calculator section and they want me to find the roots. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write my equation. X squared minus 3x plus 2 equals to 0. I'm going to use the method of plug and chug. Plug and chug is basically working backwards, working from the answers. One of these is the answers. I'm going to start with A and I'm going to start plugging in my first value of 1. So wherever I see x, I'm going to replace it by 1. So this is going to be 1 squared minus 3 times 1 plus 2, and I'm hoping that when I start chugging, I will get a value of 0, which is the same that's on the right. Now the chugging part is when we use order of operations, which you all know as please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Do we have any parentheses? No. Do you have any exponents? Yes. 1 squared, so we're going to do this first. 1 squared is 1 times 1. 1 times 1 is 1, so we did that first. I'm going to bring down all of this, which is minus 3 times 1 plus 2, and I'm hoping it equals 0. Can I multiply or divide from left to right? The answer is yes. So I'm going to multiply next. So this is 1 minus 3 times 1 is 3 plus 2, hoping to get 0. Still chugging away. Can I add or subtract from left to right? The answer is yes. So 1 minus 3 gives me negative 2, and I'm going to add that to 2. I'm going to see if I get 0. Now remember, when the signs are different, you subtract. So 2 minus 2 is 0. 0 equals to 0. The left equals the right. So my answer, 1, is a correct choice. So I'm going to start going through my answers. So A has a 1, possible. B has negative 1, so that's not my answer. C has a value of negative 1, that's not my answer. Oh, D also has a 1. So my answer is either A or D. Alright, let's keep going. We're going to have to plug in negative 2. So this will be negative 2 all squared minus 3 times negative 2. And I'm going to add 2, and I'm hoping to get 0. If I plug negative 2 in and chug away and I get 0, it means that A is my answer. Now, if I don't get 0, it means A is not my answer. So let's see what happens. We're going to do exponents first. So negative 2 squared is positive 4 minus 3 times negative 2 plus 2 equals to 0. I have 4, take away. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6 plus 2 equals to 0. Can I add or subtract from left to right? The answer is yes. So these two negatives will come together, and that will be 4 plus 6 plus 2 equals to 0. Now I always tell my students on the task test, when you write on your scrap paper, they're not checking your working. From here, I can see that this will never equals to 0. When you add 4 with 6, you get 10, and then you add 2, you get 12. 12 does not equals to 0. So you don't need to compute this. When you look at your problem and you can tell whether it equals to 0 or not, you can stop. So I could have stopped here. When I plugged in a -2, I got 12. It didn't give me a 0, which means that A is not my answer. My solution for this problem is D. If you want to, you can check the +2. That would be 2 squared minus 3 times 2 plus 2, and we're hoping to get 0. 2 squared is 4 minus 3 times 2 plus 2, hoping to get 0. We're going to do our multiplication. This is 4 take away 6 plus 2 equals to 0. 4 take away 6, -2 plus 2 equals to 0. And I can see from here this will give me 0, because once the numbers are different, it means you have to subtract. 2 minus 2 is 0. So the left hand side is equivalent to the right hand side. So x equals 2 is an answer choice. Okay, again, in the quadratic equation, we have 3x squared minus 2x equals to 8. Now this one, they didn't make it equals to a 0, they made it equals to an 8. That's fine. 3x squared minus 2x equals to 8. And they want to know what is one possible value of x. One of these is our x's. So let's start with A. We're going to assume that x is -4. So wherever I see x, I replace it with -4. And I'm hoping when I chug away, I get 8. Here, I'm going to use the calculator. So 3, open parentheses, I'm going to input -4. We have to square it, subtract 2, which you're going to have, oh, I forgot my negative. Let's put that in. My -4. Close the parentheses. Now when I hit enter, I got 56. It doesn't equal to 8, so A is not my answer. Okay, let's try for B. So this will be 3 times -2 all squared minus 2 times -2, and we're hoping when we put that all in the calculator, I get a +8. So let's plug that in. 3, open the parentheses, -2, let's square that, take away 2, and then in the parentheses a -2, and let's hit enter. Wow, we got 16. Did not equals to 8, so B is not our answer. Okay, we're going to have to try for C. So that's 3 times 2 all squared minus 2 times 2, and we're hoping that gives us 8. Notice I did not clear my screen. You do not have to clear your screen after every computation, especially when you're doing the same problem. I would clear when I move on to another problem. So this is 3, open the parentheses, I'm going to input 2, square, take away 2, times 2, and I hit enter. There we go. We got 8. So our answer is C. So here we're plugging and chugging, but we're letting the calculator do all the work for us. Remember, the task test is 2 parts. You have to be able to do this with the calculator and without the calculator. Let's look at some word problems. This problem states a small rocket is launched from a height of 80 feet above the ground. The height of the rocket in feet h is represented by the equation ht equals -16t squared plus 64t plus 80, where t is time in seconds. Determine the seconds that it will take for the rocket to hit the ground. Now, notice they said their equation was h of t equals -16t squared plus 64t plus 80, and that the h represents the height of the rocket. But they want to know how long it would take for the rocket to hit the ground. When the rocket hit the ground, the height would have to be 0. We want to find out what's the value of t when all of this is equals to 0. So that's one way of looking at it. Well, this is the mathematical way. Suppose you're in the test and you're like, oh my God, I don't know what to do with this. See here, you see the t squared? Once I see that, this is one of those zeros. So I would take my whole thing here and make it equal to 0 because I saw that t squared there. That's what I would do if I didn't even understand the problem. And now I'm going to plug and chug my way. So A is -1 seconds. So let's plug in -1 and see what happens. So wherever I see t, I'm going to replace it by -1. Okay, get my calculator. I'm going to clear my screen because I'm onto a new problem. Okay, -16. All right, I'm going to put -1 in. I'm going to square it. I'm going to add 64, which is multiplying by -1, and then I'm going to add 80. I hit enter, and notice I got 0. But hold up. Time can never be negative. I did this for a reason. A is not your answer. You can never have negative time. I know sometimes we say, I just lost 60 minutes of my time. Yes, you've lost it, but it's never negative. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Time is never a negative entity. You can't have negative time. I know we say, oh my God, I can never get back that time in my life again, especially when you're waiting for someone. It doesn't make sense to say you've lost -60 minutes. It doesn't make sense in a mathematical world. Time is never negative and distance is never negative. Make that a note. You cannot have negative time. I know some of you on the test will put in a -1, get a 0, and then say, oh, my answer is A. But your answer cannot be A because you can't have, there's no such thing as -1 second. Let's move on to B. We want to try when the time is 5 seconds. So this will be -16. Wherever I see t, I replace it with 5 plus 80. Let's get our calculator. -16, 5, close the parentheses, all squared, plus 64 multiplied by 5, and then last step is to add 80. When I hit enter, I get 0. So my answer is 5 seconds. So when you're in the test and you get any of these types of problems and you see negative time, skip over that. I would have skipped over A and start plugging in from B. Remember, there's no such thing as a negative time. I have another example for you. It says the formula h of s equals 42s minus 12s squared can be used to calculate a height of a ball thrown up into the air at an initial velocity of 42 feet per second. How many seconds after the ball is thrown, s, will it take for the ball to hit the ground? Again, you're throwing a ball in the air and you want to know how long it's going to take before it hits the ground. When it hits the ground, it's at 0 feet. So again, this is another of those 0 equals to 42s minus 12s squared. Or again, if you were in the test and you were like, oh, I have no idea what they're asking me to do. Notice I see that s squared. Once I see that, oh, that equals to 0. We're going to do some plugging and chugging. I'm hoping that when I replace my s by 3.5, I get 0. So again, this will be on the calculator because no one has time to do this manually. So let's get my calculator. So I have 42. Open the parentheses. I'm going to insert 3.5. Subtract 12. And then open the parentheses, and I have 3.5, and we're going to close that, and we're going to square. And when we hit enter, guess what we get? 0. So our answer is A, finito. I hope this has been helpful. In these examples, I used the calculator, yes, but I did not use the quadratic formula. I used plug and chug, and I also illustrated how to solve these type of problems without a calculator using plug and chug, and please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. I hope this has been helpful. Good luck in your task examination.